Hey everyone, I'm here tonight with Paddy Gallagher, who recently, through the Old World Fanatics project of compiling Australian tournament results, has come in at number one. Well done, Paddy. I'm hoping that you can give us some insights into just being successful as a tournament player, particularly this really interesting list that you're going to be playing this weekend at Oldhammer 2, the Western Sydney Wargamers event. And if you're not aware, tonight, Paddy doesn't have a webcam, so you're going to hear her voice from another dimension. But we go from here, and if you turn the volume up, I'm sure you'll find some really interesting information tonight. So thanks for coming on, Paddy. Did you just want to start talking about just, I guess, your history in gaming in general, and maybe just some of the tournaments that you've been to, ending with some of the tournaments you've been to this year, and how Old World is shaping up for you?
Sure. Well, I had a bit of an interesting journey with Warhammer Fantasy. Because I got into it pretty recently. Playing 40K 7th edition in high school. I kind of missed that big bump of 6th edition, 7th edition, where Warhammer in Australia was really big. I came into fantasy in 8th, then it kind of died. But then after COVID, I went back into that resurgence of 6th edition. So I've been to CanCon and Castle Assault and learning 6th edition after 8th. Um, and then almost it feels natural progression into Old World, which seems to be based off 6th edition a lot more than 8th. Just been kept going to the same tournaments, Moab, Castle Assault. I'm really looking forward to CanCon this next year, and it's just I have been quite lucky with tournament results recently. Um, Castle Assault, genuinely, I'm very happy with my performance. I did really well right up until the end. The last game was a bit shaky. It was fighting Angus ASB, very good player.
Yeah, number two, I think.
Yeah. I think he technically won, but I mean, we didn't get too many rounds in, and he completely outplayed me. I don't remember what the final result was, but I had a better I was doing better before that, so I was pushed forward to that number two spot. Moab, I got really lucky. I did well first game, got absolutely crushed game two, got 0-20'd. Um, and
By
then
the
just
eventual
afterwards,
winner, though, I think, wasn't it, Akhtar?
oh yeah. Deserved the win. It was a it was a good game. Um, and then yeah, just had three close victories pretty much until the end. But then because it was based off wins, my one really good and three like 11 nines got it in the end. No one else was on four wins.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Um,
here you are, and the last version of this tournament, you did pretty well and ended up third as well, essentially only losing to the player that won. Do you find that are you someone who watches the international scene for our world, or are you just pretty much making these lists on your own and focused on what happens in Australia?
I do quite like to think about and make the lists myself. Like sometimes it's impossible to avoid what's happening, what the like big lists are. Like I haven't played any Bretonians and I haven't played too much against Bretonians, but I know what the like good Bretonian lists are just because they're everywhere at the moment, you know?
Yeah, they are. I've drawn one in the first round. We'll see. Been thinking about
Oh,
that Duke all week, but what are you gonna do?
another reason I got lucky at Moab, I had so much movement to flyers. There were like four falcon horns flying around that game,
Mm.
and I didn't. get matched with a single one.
I
Oh,
know.
I had someone looking after me that day. Um, I think it's a lot more interesting to, well, interesting might be a weird word, but it's a lot better to think about the list yourself because you work out why things are the way they are. And what its role is and what it does. Like with a lot of my Wood Elf armies, with these really good tournament results, I've kind of run a similar list the entire time, and it's a powerful list, no doubt about it. But I'd be hesitant to call it a cheesy list.
Well, it's
Like,
aggressive,
uh,
isn't it? Like it's not the type of list that people would complain about with Wood Elves normally. That idea that there's a ton of skirmishers you can't catch who are just going to
mm,
ping you to death. It's the opposite of that. If people don't remember, you're playing War Dancers. You have the Wild Riders, which are popular, but really aggressive Wild Riders. So it
yeah,
is a bit different.
pretty much every game I take the Vanguard banner on my Wild Riders and just it's a really nice turn one. Um, if I get the first turn, great. I a lot of the games I lose, I don't get the first turn, but when I do, it's great. Bam, we're in combat. Here's a big threat you need to deal with turn one. If you can, fine. I've got other stuff in the army. If you can't, that's almost a win condition.
Is that something you think we've sort of debated playing Warhammer or Old World again, the importance of the first turn, and some armies really need it. And you start it like Wolves of the Sea is probably going to be a little bit more popular soon, and they're desperate and have ways of getting turn one, whereas other more controlling armies like the last turn, so they can do that charge. If you flee, you're going to lose a lot of points. They get to decide at the end. Are you someone who comes down firmly believing that going first or going second is better?
You can build a list that does really well turn two. But if you haven't, turn one's better. Like I feel that's an easy call 90% of the time.
Do you think it's to do with shooting, being able to get, I suppose, like, most armies you could get into charge range, but you can sort of dictate things going first a little bit more, the threat range. You can stay outside of people's maximum charge range. Or do you just
If you
think,
have any of those Alpha Strike units, like the Vanguard Pegasi or the Vanguard Wild Riders, Green Knight, any of those things that can do it, it's easy, you want them in. If you have the shooting, if you have any shooting, really, you get to get that first volley. Um, and more just you get to start positioning. There's a lot of stuff across pretty much the range of the full range of armies that have all of a sudden really fast movement stuff. You've got like so many movement spells in the different laws. You can drilled march with Steed of Shadows 36 inches. You can double move a dragon with uh, Arcane Urgency from Battle Magic. Even the smaller range teleports. You get to be aggressive. You get to move and have your opponent react to your moves. And sometimes you want to be reacting, but a lot of the time, at least with me, I always want to be you're playing my game.
good to know in case we match up? With this particular army, it's so we've got just the whole army shot on the board, which I know you're going to get painted in time. We're trying to shame people on this channel into doing it. And it seems like, are these the old bone giants just to start with, or almost similar to the Wood Elf army? There's like almost an Amazonian sort of look, but they're probably, are they an old model, a GW model?
No, so I made them up myself
Okay.
for last year's Castle Assault. Um, so not to toot my own horn, but I've been sculpting my own models for a while, mainly
Really?
because I'm very broke and it is a lot cheaper than I want models. It is the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to get models. Um, and yeah, the kind of idea is that they're that like 2D Egyptian like wall carving kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it was back in sixth edition where Bone Giants could have different equipment. So you can see in the middle you've got two hand weapons, you got great weapon, you got sword and shield, which was actually really
Mm.
good back in sixth edition because he's technically a model on foot. He got +1 armor save from parry.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a alternate army list in sixth edition you could run. The only one Tomb Kings had actually that was uh based on this guy called Sahanazmet, who is the Grand Vizier of Qatar, um, who he himself is like half Lich Priest, half Bone Giant. Um, and it's very similar to Mortuary Cult. So
Yeah.
with Mortuary Cult coming out and me already having a lot of Bone Giants, it's pretty easy to say how can I make this army designed in sixth edition work in Old World.
Mm. I wonder if parry coming back could help infantry maybe a little bit. It'd be good to have something with heavy armor and shield or light armor and shield, just a little bit extra with some of those fluffy units. But these being originals are pretty incredible. So these are one-offs, or are you planning on turning things into sculpts? I'm a big fan of 3D prints. I'm not a big fan of GW after years of trauma, but it's yeah, these your own unique armies. Sorry, models.
So yeah, sorry, just to clarify, these are 3D prints. I designed
Yeah.
them in Blender and then printed them out.
Yeah, still
Um,
okay. So you've got files and everything that maybe if you meet Paddy on the side at this event, you can be hooked up with
mm,
with a way to do this for a small fee.
I am I am looking at making it a proper business, selling STLs and all that,
Hmm.
but uni's keeping me very busy, and it's I want to put effort into the bits that are like annoying to do, like having professional renders and
Hmm.
photos and pre-supporting the models is another like thing that's trickier than it necessarily needs to be, but it's something that's worth putting effort into when you're selling stuff online.
Yeah.
Um, but hopefully uni's finishing up in the next week. I've got my final exams for this year, the Monday and Tuesday after this event. Um,
So you're not
hopefully
studying.
I'm starting to become a high school science teacher.
Ah, really? I'm a deputy principal, Patty. This is we won't clog up the pot tonight, but maybe we can talk about it later. There's plenty of jobs, but
Yeah,
printing. So, how far away from you up from the end? Just to wrap that side of it up, are you close to graduating, or are you
should be end of
away?
next year.
Wow.
But
Okay.
I've got all the hard science subjects out of the way. Now it's just easy education subjects.
Yeah. No, that's right. Well, we can talk about that at the event because you're employable right now if you want to make more money. Even though I'm a big buyer of prints, um, it's interesting that were you always someone who had like a lot of hobby involved with playing like with miniature games in general, or is this just the sculpting as sort of something that's come along recently?
I've been doing it for a couple of years. I tried to do like green stuff, but I'm so rubbish at it. It's crazy. I have trouble even gap filling correctly. Um, but it's kind of just the thing that I I really like Warhammer Fantasy. I like all the aspects of the game. So of the hobby, I want to build my own cool guys. I want to paint them up really nice, and then I want to play really well with them.
Hmm.
Uh, it's an all-encompassing kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting that because that's sort of like where we're headed. That even though you might have had like a lot of success as a game, I don't think Warhammer is just a competitive game. It's sort of like there's a for us like we're back into it because we played as children in many ways, which was fourth ed, fifth ed that year, like way before. I didn't play much sixth ed at all. I have no real idea of eighth ed. And it's remarkable just how many people have come back for that reason as well. It just sticks with people, fantasy particularly, which doesn't make a lot of money from Games Workshop, and that's why they killed it off. But it has drawn this sort of what we sort of say is this Warhammer. Like, yeah, at the moment, Old World's a bit of a project, and the problems are sort of coming to the surface competitively. But at the same time, people seem to can't get enough of it at the moment.
I'm so glad Old World's back. I saw the announcement. I looked up. I counted how many years were left until it was back. I was counting down. I was so ready for it the entire time.
Yeah,
I
it'll
I
probably keep
was
going, I would imagine. Like, I'm not
oh
optimistic with
God, I
Games
hope
Workshop.
so.
I think there's a big push for it to stick around, and this sort of event helps that.
I was in the trenches during the that announcement after the announcement, arguing, telling people they were silly for thinking it was a 10 millimeter game at epic scale, um, talking about what armies were going to be good. It was great.
We probably
I
should talk about your list if you don't mind. Like, we've
yes,
got,
please.
I brought up, like, this looks like your priest or level four with the three level ones that support it.
Mm,
So on the
the
screen, for the people at home, you've got the level four with illusion and the warding splint on a steed. You've got three mortuary priests with necromancy who are also on steeds. 17 horse archers who have warbows, five tomb swarms ambushing, three Ashabti, three Necrolith Colossus, so one from special, and a mandatory tomb scorpion.
mm,
Yeah, like this was my favorite list. I sort of think it's a bit out of left field, but I can see that there's different things you could do with it. How would you explain it to someone who says, well, that's not your garden variety Tomb Kings list?
um, I would go into the thing of oh yeah, I used this list in a previous edition and I'm just trying to make it work in Old
Okay.
World. But I genuinely think there's some good stuff here. I
Mhm.
I think Bone Giants have always been good, and they've dropped about 60 points this edition
Yes. Yeah.
and have gained some good stuff and lost some stuff. Um, Having Killing Blow is really good. I know it doesn't uh stack the same way, but that when you charge, your successful wounds cause more attacks. I think it is psychotic that that rule has lasted as long as it has. Each I've been expecting it almost to get changed, to get removed the entire time. Should have been gone in 8th edition. It's surprising that it lasted now. There's nothing else in the game that can snowball, that can just go exponentially like that.
Do you
And that
think, like we were talking about it, that for 160 points, like it is just cheap for two when you're into the 200s. Not only are they big targets for things that like the key, like a dragon, let's say, on the other side, but 160 points is just sort of throwaway. It's still like, all right, it's if it costs you a turn or two, it's not the end of the world. And they just don't take as much of a percentage of your rare points. Like, you can fit one in special because of the rules for the army list, but it's still only 320. So you've still got other places to run three. They're behemoths, aren't they? Behemoths for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So you've got three behemoths. How do you feel? Like, so the rest of the list you've got the level four who you probably need, but you
yeah.
probably heard us talk about the army without giving too much more away. Were we on the money one way or the other with how you sort of plan to use it?
I mean, pretty much. I also don't exactly know how I'll plan to use it. I haven't actually used this list yet. I
That's
mean,
comforting.
I think it's just going to be it's a pretty small army footprint wise. And I like those kinds of armies where you can deploy in a third of the table and fight half your opponent's army at one time. I think that's a very easy, just like I am starting on the right foot. I'm starting with the advantage, you know?
Yep. Do you think
Um,
deployment, a lot of the advantage in the game is sort of in deployment to an extent? People can make big mistakes.
oh yeah, yeah. You can definitely lose the game in deployment. Um, there's some units that like going back to my vanguarding Wild Riders. The key thing I try to do with them is pick their target out before I deploy. They're always the last thing that gets put down before characters. And I want to get that turn one charge, so I need to put it right in front of the unit that it's going to go against. Um, I fought Chaos Dwarves in the last event. Um, wait,
Yeah, Jeff,
sorry, no,
the big
I
G.
fought I fought Chaos Dwarves at Moab, and it was basically an Orc and Goblin list. Big unit of Black Orcs, lots of Hobgoblins around, War Boss on a Wyvern, Train, Toughness 6 Lamar, Toughness 6 Taurus, Sorcerer, and the the only unit that I the, I before the event, because the list came out a week before, the main thing I was thinking is what do my Wild Riders go against? What are they good against? Um, and I decided it was the Black Orcs. I thought my strength 5, my high armor piercing is enough to deal with them. And in the game, it was. And I won that game because I had that right deployment, that right unit countering the right unit. If I'd gone against the train or any of the characters where I'm wounding on fives, it's a different story. The Wild Riders die, I lose 200 points. And it's similar here. I think it's like a general thing where you have to think what unit is going to deal with what unit. And even in the list building phase, you've got to have something that can deal with a dragon. That's where the illusion wizard comes in.
Mm.
My
Yes,
idea
you and me
is
have similar ideas here.
you come at me, I say bam, I cast you can't charge on you. Um you're stuck there while three bone giants come in and take you to town. Um but then also you need to be able to deal with like a stubborn man-at-arms top pit unit. You need to have you need to be able to take all comers. And it's a that's I feel the hardest part of list building.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's the tension as well, that tournaments tend to skew towards, well, here's this unit that I could take three of, like Iron Drakes or
mm,
Sisters of the Thorn. However, like I have played a lot of other games besides Warhammer, and what happens in those games is that are even well supported games, they just turn into a scissors, paper, rock type of meta game. And Warhammer just takes too long for that to be how it ends up. Like you can't invest 3 hours a game, 9 hours of playing in a day, and feel like you turn up at the table and you just lost because you're playing the army that you can't win against. Like my philosophy is I'd rather be 40-60 a dog in every matchup than turn up and be 90-10 and just have no chance in one game. And I did roll the dice a bit with that with the Falcon Horn. Like I've got a lot of movement too. And if I run into Paul, I'm in deep trouble. But
mm.
fortunately he didn't bring a wizard at all. So I've got some game. But Yeah, I think you're right. Like I much prefer to play all comers, and you've got to give yourself a chance against the different archetypal units like a tar pit, a ridden monster.
And I will say this is a bit of a weird spammy list. Like there are going to be um uh lists that just completely take apart mine. If you can kill one bone giant a turn easily, the little collection of doctors and the priest aren't going to be able to heal him up in time because there's no wounds taken.
Doctors
Um,
is good.
if if you've got the shooting and the like like 3, 4 fireballs to just
Hmm.
roast the skeleton horse archers, it's
Yeah.
terrible. Now my priests are just going to get picked off. So this is definitely a list that is slanted one way, especially compared to like the Wood Elf list
Hmm.
I ran before. Um,
So are you worried about anyone in particular who you've got? Is it Chris and his ogres first up? Who would you be terrified of facing if you get through him?
I mean, I I don't think I do great against a big scary dragon. I
Hmm.
think I've got some stuff to deal with it, but um, it's big and scary for a reason. Um, See, I don't really know what I'm scared about yet. Um, I knew when I ran this army in sixth edition, uh, my worst matchup was dwarves. It was something that took 2, 3 cannons and could just decimate me. But cannons are a lot worse.
Hmm.
Healing is a lot better.
Bone giants start with 5, I think, so you escape the D3 plus 1.
Mm. And I mean, I'm still artillery's still going to do good against it if it does well. But yeah, like I don't know. I'm interested to see how my list gets taken apart on Saturday.
We will see. Look, to wrap it up, what would make it a successful event for you? So you've been to the first one. I felt like I don't really have the time or the inclination anymore to go to the events around the country that you do, and you'd have this reference point that I don't have, that I have played in a lot of tournaments and tried to organize them over the years. And I thought it was about as good as it gets for that sort of size and scale where the venue's pretty clean. It's got easy access to the site. You can buy food. And I just thought having the terrain taken care of, and it was pretty punchy time-wise. What would you like, apart from just winning, or even if that really matters, and like I'll admit it matters to me a bit too, but on the weekend, what would make it a great day for you?
Well, I mean, winning is good, but I think the best part about the events that you guys are running, you've not skimped out on the trophies. Like I've got my little third place medal from last one, and it is like solid metal. It's really nice. I wouldn't mind another one, even just because it's pretty. It's got a beautiful logo. It's
Yeah.
nice. Um, and yeah, I think your events there are run really well. The
Just to be clear, Paddy, I don't run them. Poor
Oh yeah.
Michael, who's in the background, we're just the hype machine for Michael, but he is sacrificing a lot. I think I'm very hopeful to work something out with him that he can play the next one. But if you see
Mm.
Michael on the weekend, he has a team of people printing terrain for him. It's incredible. I think you see on the chat. So just don't want to take any more credit. I also like the medals, Michael. Thank you for everything. But yes.
The one thing I'd like to see, I'm very interested to see how they've tried to focus on infantry and rank bonus in this
Mm,
event. I'd like to see how that goes because it seems like not too many people have made lists to really play for that.
mm.
I'd
Because
like
your
to
horsemen are
see,
all you can use, I think. Like I have two
yeah,
units technically, but really it'll be one that I try to grab it at the end. I'm not really actively going for the objectives.
the one thing I'd like to see in future, not just from this event, but from all of them, is stricter comp
Yeah.
to just I wouldn't mind at 1500 points, just no dragons.
What do
Let's
you think
let's
about the
find
new Games Workshop sort of the comp they've put on their February event? Have you heard about that? The no
yeah,
level fours?
the Throat of Skulls. It does some
Yes. Yeah.
interesting stuff. I think the limits on mages are kind of silly. Like it says one level 4 and two level 3s is the most mages you can have in an army. That it basically doesn't affect any army. Having one level 4 and one level 3 is still really good magic. It really screws over Zinc demons who have nothing going for them except for their ability to take a lot of level 3s. But the 25 a character can only be maxed 25% of the thing, I think is really impactful.
Mm,
It means that at 1500 points, you're a lot more restricted. It basically means no dragons at 1500.
yes.
And at 2000, you need to make some tough choices. Like normal Wood Elf Dragon with all the bells and whistles comes out to about 550. Deciding what that 50 points to drop is hard. We were talking about it in one of the chats just today. High elves can still build a really powerful dragon under those rules. Wood elves have to make some tough decisions. Uh, Warriors of Chaos Dragon, basically you get nothing. You get the guy on the dragon, nothing else.
Yeah,
And
I think it's 480 for that by
mm,
itself. So
what it really buffs is those lower points level characters that are there to hunt dragons, like your Bretonnian dukes. Because all of a sudden they've either got less saves to go through or less attacks coming back. And already it was kind of an even matchup between a fully kitted out Duke with the Monster Slayer versus one of those big dragons. And now it's under those rules a lot better.
that's what I think. Like I think it'll be interesting to see. When I built my list a long time ago, I was adamant I just wanted to have a chance. I wasn't going to take a dragon. It did become tempting after one game, but I wanted to have something that could just deal with it. And I've ended up with that illusion mage to do that at least. But it will be revealing after this event how powerful those dragons are because you do have a couple that don't have much protection, and then you've got Alistair's one with the pendant. It's pretty heavy, and I think, yeah, a lot of lists are going to have a hard time against it. And
I definitely don't do good against that except for the poison attacks on the swarm.
yeah, that's the
And
sneaky thing with them, isn't it? The tar pit that they can be
mm,
ambushing in. I played Jungle Swarms last time, and it was amazing how often I could just stick them in somewhere and they'd hang on for too
one
long
good
for my
thing about
opponent.
three bone giants and five tomb swarms ganking a dragon is that there's no characters in there to challenge.
If you pull it off, remember, everybody, you spell a dragon, I buy you a drink. Scream it out. I'm happy to pay. If you like Long Island iced tea, I'll cover you on this one.
Hopefully I'll be able to take you up
And you
on
can
that
claim
offer.
it. It doesn't matter how many times it happens throughout the day, I will pay it out. Happy to do it.
Um,
I think to me, that's what would make a successful event, Paddy. If I hear a dragon go down early, I'll be very happy. So,
uh,
look, it's been great for you to come on. Thanks. I've been looking forward to it for a while. Too bad about the webcam if you're still listening at home, but Paddy's going to be there on Saturday. I think
mm,
the army you can see on the screen. We're all looking forward to it. I think, Paddy, thanks again for coming on tonight and just sort of detailing, giving some of the insights as you are number one, and you might still be after this weekend.
oh, hopefully so. Um, thank you. It's been really fun to come on. I'm glad we were able to organize it. I know there was some difficulty on exclusively my end, uh, getting it all ready, but I'm really looking forward to um next week, and I'm hoping it helps me decide what I take to CanCon, because I'm tossing up. Bone Giants or Chaos Dwarves.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
we'll
Well,
see.
yeah, if you've got them, Chaos Dwarves, a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll leave it there. And thanks, Paddy, for tonight. We'll see you on Saturday.
See you then.